Hello, Jeremy Leslie here. This is an educational video covering the discharge workflow page. The discharge workflow is the second page in the provider view viewpoint. By clicking on the tab that says discharge here. The discharge page has multiple components. Some of them are not shown as a default. You can select these additional components to be seen by clicking here on the triple dash icon and selecting the components that you want to see or wish to not see. Some components, as you can see, are locked. We will not review all of these components in this video. Several of these components match components from the Admit Manage Workflow page and are covered elsewhere. The first component on the discharge workflow page we will discuss is the hospital course component. This component does match the same component on the Admit Manage Workflow page and is intended to allow the hospital course to be developed during the patient's hospitalization such that at the time of discharge, this information can be pulled directly into the discharge note. It is multi-contributor in that one provider can start the note, another provider can continue the note, and another provider can further continue that note. Whichever the last provider is that pulls this data into the discharge note will be responsible for all of the content in the note. The second component is the quality measures workflow, which was discussed on previous videos related to the Admit Manage Workflow page that will be used more in the future to optimize quality measures. The third component, the home medications component, has a red asterisk next to it. Here we have a notification that says that this information is required to complete the discharge. To satisfy this requirement, you need to complete a discharge medication reconciliation. You can complete that by clicking this icon. After completing the discharge medrec, you will see there's now a green check mark and the red asterisk has changed to a check mark. The outstanding orders component show orders that have not yet been resulted for you to review prior to discharge. The next component is the discharge orders component, which is similar to the new order entry component. The first folder is the admission and discharge orders. The expected workflow is to go to this folder and select the discharge orders power plan, which then goes to the shopping cart. The discharge orders power plan includes the discharge order, as well as the discharge activity order, the discharge diet order, a fluid restriction order, showering bathing instruction order, and a wound care instruction order. Signing of the discharge order changes the asterisk next to order profile to a green check mark. If you do not complete all of the red asterisks required items and go to the discharge note, you will need to override the discharge requirements by selecting a follow-up reason. The order profile allows you to review the current orders. The discharge diagnosis component allows you to add the discharge diagnosis if it is not already completed. You can identify that this has already been completed on this patient by the green check mark. The patient education component provides similar education to the patient that was previously found on the discharge process. It will make suggestions based on this visit and chronic problems. For this patient, you can see that it recommends COPD, which has been added, and community-acquired pneumonia, which is now added to the education. Each of these education items can be edited using the pencil button. You can also, by selecting the star, add it to your personal favorites or your department favorites, which will then be available via the favorites tab. You can create personalized custom educations. First, search for a related education component or the blank component. Press the pencil to edit. Put in your personal custom instruction. right click and hit Save as Personal Custom Instruction. Now, if you go to Custom Instruction and Personal Custom Instruction, you will find that as an option. The next component is the follow-up component. You can create personal favorites or select quick picks. It will, at default, include the primary care physician listed. You can click Modify to add additional details. The discharge planning section will include a wealth of information from the care management team related to discharge. There is a CASPER component for the Kentucky market. If you click the down caret, it will open up a form to document CASPER review. The last component we will discuss is the patient instructions component. This is a free text field that can be filled out with auto texts as well that will print out on the patient's discharge instructions. When you've completed all of the required components, click on the discharge note hyperlink, which will create a new dynamic documentation discharge note. This note has been revamped. It will first include the admit and discharge date, if those are recorded, the discharge diagnosis. It provides a section for procedures and studies completed during the hospitalization, a section for reason for hospitalization. It pulls in the hospital course from the previous component. It will pull in the most recent vital measurements and has a section for physical exam documentation, shows the discharge disposition and the follow-up recommended. In the right column, it has the discharge medication reconciliation, a space for condition on discharge. It will list all consulting physicians who were involved in the patient's care. There is a line item that pulls the active diet order that may be helpful in documenting that information for patients on complicated tube feeding schedules. It will also pull in all the orders from the discharge power plan, including activity, diet, fluid restriction, wound care, and showering and bathing instructions. There's a section to add follow-up labs and a section that pulls in pending laboratory results at time of discharge, and a section to document the time spent on discharge. And that completes the use of the discharge workflow page. You've reached the end of this video. Please review the admit through discharge demonstration for a better idea of how these components work together.